We are recording now. Now we want to talk about transforming your leadership. We've listened to personal leadership, and I think that personal leadership will probably be good if we have personal leadership one and personal leadership two. Maybe we can break it into two sessions like that for future purposes, so that we will not have to take it in one stretch. Or even though we can take it in one stretch, but it would be nice if we can just have it as personal leadership one and personal leadership two. I think it would be appropriate that way. So we are still talking about personal leadership. So you can see that personal leadership is very, very important and very, very key to you becoming the leader that you are created to be. So in this session, we are talking about your journey and your engagement with life through personal leadership. So the question you want to ask yourself is, how do I begin my personal leadership journey? That is the first question you want to ask yourself. You've heard that your your personal journey and your engagement with life is through personal leadership. And so that is the reason why you need to transform your leadership. And the second question you should ask yourself is, how do I engage with life? Those are the two key questions that you need to ask yourself as we aim to transform our leadership. So the question again is how to become a transformed leader. How do you become a transformed leader? We all desire to change our world. That is very true. It is true of me. It is true of you. It is true of any sane man that I have ever come across with. Everybody desired to change their world. You may not necessarily have the skill to change the world, but we can change our world. We want to change our church. We want to change our place of work because these are our primary place of influence. We want to change our community, uh, but the journey to changing our world does not begin with changing things. It begins with we experiencing personal transformation. If you want to change the world, or if you want to change your world, the journey begins with you experiencing personal transformation. If you don't experience personal transformation, there is no way you can translate that into a changed society. John Maxwell, who is a very good mentor of mine, he has also mentored my friend Kunle Banwo, who is a certified coach uh, in John Maxwell company. John Maxwell says, when we are foolish, we want to conquer the world. But when we are wise, we want to conquer ourselves. How true is that statement? You know, if you want to, I have seen a lot of people who have desired to conquer the world. You know, I'm sure we've all heard about Napoleon, uh, who whose whole aim was to conquer the world, but was unwilling to conquer himself. We all know what came to be the end of his story. He was never able to conquer the world, even though he tried. But you know, it is impossible for a man, for a single man, to conquer the entire world. Adolf Hitler also tried it. He failed. And I'm sure you know somebody is also trying it currently. Putin his eye is not just on Ukraine, his eye is on the entire world. He's also trying it, but I can tell you he's going to fail. But it is foolishness and stupidity for any man to think he can conquer the world. But rather than for you to start thinking of conquering the world, what you need to do is to start thinking about how you can conquer yourself. You see, the most difficult person to lead is not people. The people is not your problem. The most difficult person to lead is yourself. I can tell you that it is much more easier to lead people than to lead yourself, because there are some things you can easily tell people to do and they will gladly do it. But I can tell you and assure you that there are certain things you want yourself to do and you discover you are failing in carrying out those instructions. And that is why it is very, very important when we desire to conquer ourselves rather than desiring to conquer the world. Let me tell you the story of a pastor. I'm a pastor, so don't mind me if I start sharing stories about pastors and all that, because that is my primary place of assignment. Uh, Let me tell you the story of a pastor who was trying to prepare a sermon. He was in a study, uh, trying to come up with a topic and to write out his sermon outline. And he had this 4-year-old boy who kept coming to the study to disturb him. I would not allow him to concentrate, to be able to put things down. So this pastor decided that what will I do to stop this boy from disturbing me? So he decided uh, to give the little boy, an assignment. On his table was a puzzle, was a map of the world. So he decided to shred that map of the world into pieces, into different parts, and into little pieces, and asked this little boy to go into a different room to fix, to kind of rearrange uh, that map of the world, or to fit those puzzles together again, knowing fully well that it will be a difficult task for that little boy. Uh, the reason why he did that was so that he can have some time to write his sermon and really get ready for the Sunday service. So the little boy, with excitement, went to another room and was busy working on the map of the world, while the father was still busy trying to get some inspiration to write out his sermon. So in less than 10 minutes, this boy was back. What happened? This little boy discovered that at the back of the map of the world was an image of a man. So what this boy did was to flip the map of the world and use the image at the back of the map of the world, which is the image of a man, to fix the puzzle of the man, because it is easier for him to relate with the man, the image of the man. So he fixed the puzzle of the image of the man together, and in less than 10 minutes, he was able to fix the world. With excitement, this little boy ran back to his father and said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, I have been able to fix the world." And of course, the father was surprised. How were you able to do, this puzzle? How were you able to fix this puzzle together in just less than 10 minutes? And the boy replied, he said, "It is simple." He said, "At the back of the map of the world, is an image of a man. So all I did was to just fix the man, and by fixing the man, I was able to fix the world. And the father that has been struggling to get inspiration for what to preach on Sunday suddenly got the inspiration from this young boy that if you can only fix the man, then you'll be ready to fix the world. And that was how this man got a sermon topic for that Sunday service. Now, what is the moral lesson of this story? It is that for you to fix the world, you will need to first fix the man. And that is very true any day, anytime. If you want to bring a change to the world, you need changed individual to carry out that assignment. You cannot bring a change to the world if you yourself have not experienced that change. So the question now is, how do we fix or transform the man? There are three things you need to do to fix or transform the man, and I'm going to mention them one after the other, but with a little explanation under each of them. How do we fix the man? Number one, by not conforming to the pattern or standard or custom of this world. So that is the first thing you need to do to fix the man. You must not allow yourself to be made conformable to the pattern and standard and custom of this world. Don't copy and fit yourself into the behavior and the culture. The culture could be superficial values of this world without thinking. Don't allow the world to mold you into its own image. You see, the problem of the world is that the world wants you to behave like every other person. But it is you who must decide that you are not going to allow the culture of the world to influence you, but rather you are going to impose a different kind of culture that will transform the society into the world. There is this anonymous quote which says, if you cannot beat them, then join them. I'm sure we've all had that quote at one time or the other, that if you cannot beat them, that you should join them. The intention of this phrase is to set us up for a conformist agenda. It is to make us to conform, because obviously if you cannot beat them, the only choice that is left for you, humanly speaking, is to join them. But as an aspiring leader, that should not be your own submission. If you cannot beat them, your culture should be to change things. Your desire should be to transform things, not to join them. And we can see the adverse effect of everybody joining the bandwagon. We can see what that effect has brought to the continent of Africa, as an example, and even to the entire world. We can see how that has robbed off also of some wonderful things that we could have witnessed in our world. Albert Einstein was also found to say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You know, when you uh when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, like we have in the world, because the world has been created in such a way that things are just happening the same way without anybody paying attention to how we can at least rearrange things to work in a different way. And I want to emphasize that what conformity agenda does is to establish the proof of insanity, according to Albert Einstein. It is to establish the proof of insanity by we doing the same thing over and over again. And the danger of doing the same thing over and over again is that you are going to keep getting the same result. You are not going to get a different result. But if we want a changed society, we cannot afford to keep doing the same thing over and over again. We definitely have to do things differently. So the first thing that you need to do to fix the man or to transform the man is by not allowing yourself to conform yourself according to the pattern or standard or custom or the superficial values of this world. The second thing you need to do to fix the man is by the renewing of your mind. By the renewing of your mind, or by the renewal of your mind. You have to develop a kind of a growth plans to educate your mind intentionally. And it has to be done intentionally. And we are going to hear more of this in the subsequent classes. But for the sake of emphasis, I just want to say that for you to transform the man, there is a necessity for you to develop growth plan to educate your mind intentionally. And how do we do this? We do this through progressive incremental change as you grow as a person. You see, every day of your life, you must cultivate the habit of always learning something new. That is what I strive for every day of my life. Every day of my life, I try to learn something new. It might just be just one thing. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you are much more wiser today than you were yesterday. That is the key. And that you are more wiser tomorrow than you are today. You must cultivate a learning attitude, a mind that is willing to learn, a mind that is willing to be educated. So you have to do that by true progressive, and that is why I said it has to be progressive. You have to keep doing it. You don't have to relax and say, oh, I've gotten it all made. You just have to keep doing it every day of your life. Number two is by focusing on good value. How do you renew your mind? By focusing on good values. You don't allow junks to be stored in your mind. You don't allow every information, because we live in a world that is filled with a lot of information now. So don't give yourself the liberty of just allowing everything to come through your mind. Be selective in what you read. Be selective with what you hear. You have to focus your attention on things that deliver values to you, not on things that will not necessarily add any positive thing to you. And of course, you have To do that by focusing on ethical attitude. You must always allow yourself to do what is right, to do the right thing. You must not do things because everybody is doing it. Somebody said that an individual has a better conscience than a group of people. And how true that statement is. It is easier for a group of people to lynch somebody to death, and they won't have any conscience for it. But it will be more difficult for an individual to lynch somebody to death, because the conscience will tell him or her that what you are doing is wrong. So therefore, for you to fix the man or to fix yourself, you have to focus on things that are ethical, things that are right, not things that are in vogue, not things that everybody is doing. You must focus on right attitude. And lastly, how do you fix the man? You fix the man by learning to know. I purposely put it that way, by learning to know or proving what is good and universally acceptable. There is a saying, it was John Maxwell also said it. He said, experience isn't the best teacher. I'm sure you've heard people say experience is the best teacher. I've had it. I've had it many times, particularly when I was much younger, when people tell me that experience is the best teacher. But John Maxwell has come to say that experience isn't the best teacher. It is evaluated experience that is the best teacher. And that is why it is important for you to learn to know, that is, you are consciously evaluating what you are learning. You are consciously uh, giving judgment whether what you are learning is important to you, is valuable to you or not. So you have to evaluate everything that comes your way. Every experience that you are going through, you have to evaluate it and adopt that which will be good for you. So, what are the transforming habits of a leader? Uh, I know my friend uh, did a little bit on the myths around leadership. Uh, I'm going to focus a little bit on that. But before we talk about transforming habits of a leader, I believe it is also essential to do a little ground clearing here, to solve some problem around some mythical problem around leadership. I think we need to start this session by beginning to solve the riddles around leadership. Number one, leaders are not born. That is one of the first myths that people often create around leadership. They say leadership are born and not made. The second myth around leadership is that they say leaders must hold a position, a rank, or a title. But I want to say that position or title is the lowest form of leadership. And you don't have to wait before somebody makes you a leader through position or title before you begin to think like a leader. You have to be mindful that we are all respectable leaders in all our respective domain or circle of influence. And the third myth around leadership is that people say leaders are flawless. But I want to tell you that leaders are not flawless. They do have at least a blind spot. If you see a leader who doesn't make mistake, you better run away from that leader. Occasionally, leaders can make mistake, but that does not mean to say that leaders should keep repeating making mistakes or should repeatedly be making mistakes. That is not what we are saying. What we are saying is that occasionally leaders can make mistakes. They are not flawless. They do have at least a blind spot, and we must understand that about leadership. And we must also understand that leaders are not necessarily born, they are both born and they are made. So there is a combination of the two, because I have never seen a leader who is an unborn leader. Perhaps maybe you have seen one. I don't believe there is an unborn leader. Leaders are both born and they are also made. So, in other words, every one of us are born with leadership gifts, just like my friend said. And of course, we have to keep developing those gifts until they begin to serve our world. So, who is qualified to be called a leader? I must say that leadership is accessible to all and sundry. There is no one that can be disqualified as a leader. But that is not to say that everybody that we have around today are leaders. It's not that they are not capable of becoming leaders. They are capable of becoming leaders, but they are yet to develop that leadership in them. So leadership is accessible to everyone. There are no individuals that are specifically born to be leaders, just like the Greek mythology says. My friend emphasized on that during his teaching. The Greek mythology believes that leaders are supposed to be born. They are supposed to have certain qualities. They are supposed to have certain traits. They are supposed to have certain characteristics. But the truth is that there is no one that are not specifically born to be leaders. And I said, ironically, there is no unborn leaders. Leaders are both born and made. And let's look at the preconditions for becoming a leader. We are talking about the transforming habits of a leader now. So, but there are preconditions for becoming a leader. What are the preconditions? That these are the things you need to have, or these are the qualities you need to possess before you can even begin to think of leadership uh, as something you are aspiring to become. Number one, a leader must be well thought of as being reputable and credible. That is the number one precondition for becoming a leader. A leader must be reputable and a leader must be credible. Reputable in that sense means that a leader is known to be very good in the area of his craft. You are reputable because people believe that you are very good in your area of giftedness. And credibility is just an additional layer to reputation, because when you consistently continue to be of good value to people, then you become credible. When a leader has been consistently known to be good in the area of his giftedness of or craft over a long period of time, then you are judged to be credible. So, in other words, for you to become a leader, you must be reputable, you must be a man or a woman of high repute, and you must be credible. Number two, you must be a responsible father, whichever uh, case you find yourself. You must be a responsible father, you must be a responsible mother, husband, or wife. A man or a woman who is not responsible is not qualified to be called a leader. So if you must qualify to be called a leader, there must be certain responsibility you must be willing to take. A leader must be of good behavior. That's number three. People must be able to speak well about you. Your behavior must be such that people are willing to model their life after you. Number four, a leader must be hospitable. There is no way you can be a good leader if you are not hospitable. If you cannot show generosity to other people, if you cannot help people when they are in difficulties, if you cannot show that you have humanity within you, there is no way you can be a good leader. So a leader must be hospitable. A leader must be knowledgeable and able to teach the same. You must not just be a leader just for the sake of being a leader. You must demonstrate appreciable knowledge in your area of giftedness, and you must be able to communicate the same to other people. A leader must not be given to drunkenness. And drunkenness in this sense means a leader must not get himself involved in any substance that can impair his or her sense of judgment. Drunkenness does not have to be you drinking wine or drinking beer, whether it is using drug, using cocaine, using heroin, using weed, whatever that can impair your sense of judgment must not be used. You must not give yourself to drunkenness. It's a condition, it's a precondition for becoming a leader. A leader must not be someone who assaults or abuse other people physically. I'm sure you must have witnessed some leaders. Even you may be surprised that even in our today world, you will see some leader who will physically assault people because they did not do things according to their instruction. Such people are not qualified to be called leaders. And a leader must not be a lover of money. He must not be greedy, selfish, and covetous. A leader must be tenacious goal getter. If you must be a leader, that must be a precondition uh, you must have. You must be a tenacious goal getter. You must have a no. You must not have a no for an answer. You must be willing to commit everything you have to getting results by every means possible. Of course, every in the right way. And of course, a leader must be highly disciplined. When we are talking about personal leadership, essentially what we are talking about is the discipline of the leader himself or herself. A leader must be disciplined. If you are not disciplined, if you cannot be in law to yourself, if you cannot lead yourself, there is no way you'll be able to lead others. And a leader must not be a novice in his or her area of primary influence. You cannot say you are a pastor, for example, and you don't know anything about how to engage yourself in effective ministry. You must not be a novice. You must be well schooled in your area of primary influence. You must get every information necessary for you to thrive in your primary area of influence. And lastly, the precondition for becoming a leader is that you must have a good report among non-believers. Now, this is very important to me because uh, I am a Christian, and I know a number of us here are also Christians. If not all of us, we are also Christians. So our good report must not be among those who are Christians alone. Unbelievers must be able to testify about our leadership, that we are truthful, and we are genuine. People must be able to authenticate our authenticity as a leader. So a leader must have a good report among non-believers. Now, there are other attributes of a leader which I also want to uh, point out. Number one, a leader must be a people person. Uh, if your leadership is not people centric, is not going to be effective. Your leadership must center around people. It must be to the people. It must not just be for yourself. It must be for the good of people. Maybe to put it that way, your leadership must be for the good of the people. It's not just to serve yourself, but to serve others. Uh, Number two, other attribute of a leader, you must be able to mentor others. We are still talking about other people. Leadership is not just you leading yourself. After you have effectively led yourself, then you need to now uh, take that leadership further by influencing other people. You have to be able to mentor others if you must be a good leader. In fact, what qualifies you to be a leader is when you have been able to mentor other people. You have been able to pass on that which you have. Then number three, a leader must be able to organize a team. You can see everything is still talking about what you are doing to other people. You must be able to coordinate and organize them. Not oppress them, not coerce them, like we had in the first teaching. We are not to suppress people, to oppress people, to manipulate people, but we are to coordinate, to harness their skill together for the good of the organization or for the good of the society. And of course, a leader must be able to communicate. If you cannot communicate, uh, that's a big problem. If people cannot interpret what you are saying as a leader, they cannot interpret uh, the vision you have cast for your people as a leader, that's a big problem. People must be able to interpret uh, even your unspoken word. You must be able to communicate in such a way that people can understand you. And of course, a leader must be charismatic. Uh, you must have that aura of taking people in the leadership journey that you are taking. People must be willing to follow you. You must have that charisma. Your charisma is your giftedness that draws people to you. You must be charismatic. If you are not a charismatic leader, you are not going to have people. You are not going to be able to influence people, and there is nobody that will be able to follow you. And of course, a leader must be passionate. People must be able to feel your passion. They must be able to see through you and say this is what uh, uh, Mr. A stands for, or this is what Sister B stands for. People must be able to feel your passion. You must be able to transmit your passion onto others, and that is what qualifies you to be called a leader. And number 7, a leader must be able to see the big picture. In other words, you must be visionary. In fact, that is the primary function of a leader, to lead people. To lead people means you know the way, you have a definite idea of where you are going, and you are able to lead the journey, and people are able to follow you. That is what qualifies you to be called a leader. And you must always be the one that has this big picture of where the organization or the society is going. So, as a leader, you must be able to see the big picture. In other words, you must be visionary. And number 8, as a leader, you must know that the art of true leadership is service to others. Your leadership is not to serve yourself, it is to serve other people. Your leadership is not to subjugate others or to oppress people, it is providing values and serving them with your gift. So we're going to move to the next slide, which talks about the context for becoming a transformational leader in the community. When we say we are looking for transformational leaders, what scenario can we say that we need, that will warrant the emergence of transformational leaders within our community? Now, I have here the justification for developing leadership within the community. The number one justification for developing leadership within the community is that when the number of aspiring leaders continue to grow and multiply, when we see people taking interest in wanting to become leaders, because the Bible says, if any man desire the position of a leader, he said it is a good thing. So there is nothing wrong in desiring to become leader. So when we see that people are aspiring to become leaders, and there is this desire, there is this yearning in people to want to grow and develop, when we see that there is this desire in people, then we have a justification for developing transformational leaders within the community. Another justification for developing leadership within the community is that when there is a problem, or when a problem arose within the community that requires leadership attention, some people call that situational leadership. You know, a leadership that came to be because of a particular crisis or problem within the society. Then, of course, we can talk about developing transformational leaders in that sense. Another justification for developing leaders within the society or community is that when the need for leaders becomes so obvious. Obviously, in our society, which is African society, we know that one of the greatest needs of our society is leadership. And we know that if we can just solve the problem of leadership in Africa, we would have been able to solve 90% of the challenges that is confronting us as a continent. So when the need for leaders becomes so obvious, then there is need for justification for developing leaders within the community. So, but however, there are criteria we need to look out for in arriving at the choice of community leaders. When we are now deciding who we want to make are community leaders, there are certain criteria we must look out for. Number one of such criteria is honest report, and which still brings me to the precondition for becoming the first precondition for becoming a leader, which is a leader must be reputable and credible. Part of being uh, reputable and credible as a leader is that you also possess an honest report. People must be able to give good and accurate testimony about you. You must not be a leader with shady character. People must be able to say the right thing about you. The second criteria to look out for in arriving at the choice of community leader is the divine endowment of that leader, or the giftedness of that leader. There is no leader when there is no divine endowment. There is no leadership without divine endowment. There is no leadership without giftedness. In fact, the reason why you are a leader is because of your gifts. If there is no gift, you can't be talking of leadership. And the reason why we have so many awkward leaders in the society today is because many of them do not possess gifts. They don't have something to serve the society. They are just there for just becoming a leader's sake. But for you to become a genuine transformational leader, you must possess a divine endowment, or there must be a specific gift in your life that you are willing and ready to serve the world with. The third criteria to look out for in arriving at the choice of community leader is that as a leader, you must possess an administrative skill. If somebody do not possess administrative skill, there is no point making such a person a leader, because leadership will always entails organization, coordination, utilization of resources, deployment of resources. If somebody does not have these things, there is no way that person can become an effective leader. So those are the three key things to look out for when we are looking for a leader, or a transformational leader in this case. Honest report, divine endowment or giftedness, and administrative skill. Now let's talk about transformational leadership. Who is a transformational leader? Now, I got this definition from Langston University. I got it from their website. It says a transformational leader is a leader who causes change in individuals and social systems. In its ideal form, it creates valuable and positive change in the followers, with the end goal of developing followers into leaders. If you click on that link there, it will take you to that definition. Now, a transformational leader. Now, in that definition, there are four key things that are very, very crucial, uh, which in many of the other transformational leadership definition that I have seen around, these four components are always there. Number one, a transformational leader must possess an ideology. It, it, there must be there must be that is every leadership transformational leadership definition I have seen. They are always talking about the idealized influence of a leader. So I have never seen a transformational leader who does not possess an ideology. In fact, what makes you a leader, what makes people to follow you, is because you possess an ideology. The reason why some of us are Christians today is because of the ideology of somebody, of Jesus. We all believe in his ideology, and that is why we are called Christians today. Christians means Christ follower. It's because we believe in the ideology of Jesus. There are other people who believe in other people's ideology. People who follow Islam believes in the ideology of Muhammad. People who follows Buddhism believes in the ideology of Buddha. So you need to understand that a transformational leader must possess an ideology, and if you want people to follow you, you must have the right kind of ideology. Uh, your ideology doesn't have to be a radical ideology. It just means that it must be something that people are willing to hold on to. People are convicted with that idea, and they are willing uh, to follow you for that idea's sake. Another component of a transformational leader is that a transformational leader motivates others through divine inspiration. A transformational leader motivates others through divine inspiration. Just like my friend said, uh, when a genuine leader does not coerce people, does not manipulate people, you inspire. You do certain things that makes people to decide for themselves that I am going to follow so and so. That is what leadership does. That is what transformational leadership do. They motivate other people through divine inspiration. And that is talking about inspirational motivator. In motivation, we must be able to inspire people, not manipulate people. Another component of transformational leadership is that a transformational leader must possess a repertoire of knowledge that energize others. We're talking about intellectual stimulation here. A transformational leader must not be a novice, must not be somebody who does not know what he's talking about. There must be that repertoire of knowledge. You must have a reserve of knowledge, a well of knowledge flowing inside of you that is so great that you are able to energize others with it. That is talking about intellectual stimulation. Is another component of transformational leadership. And the last component of transformational leadership is that a transformational leader must be adept in deploying individual talents. That is one of the function of leadership, to be able to deploy the talents that you have within your reach. You must be able to utilize the gift of people around you. You must be able to deploy them doing the right thing. And here we're talking about individual consideration. You must be able to fit people into functions that matches their gift and their giftedness, their calling and their giftedness. That is another function or another component of transformational leadership. You must be adept in deploying individual talents that you have within your reach. Now, the 4 areas of change in a transformational leader are: number 1, there must be personal inward renewal. That means the change has to come from within, not from the outside. The problem with a lot of people is that wanting the change to come from the outside, but that is not the way it works. The change has to begin from inside of you. It has to be, it has to be, it has to be from inside out, not from the outside in. It has to begin from within. So you must witness that personal inward renewal before you can begin to translate the same uh, within the community. Number two, the second area of change in a transformational leader is that there must be changes in individual. That means you must be able to create positive influence on people. Your life must be such that it influences people naturally, not by coercion, not by manipulation, but by inspiration. And not only that you are influencing people, individuals, that your influence is also causing a cultural shift within the society. So therefore, another area of change is that a transformational leader must be able to change the society. In this sense, our community, our workplace, our church. In other words, we must cause a cultural shift within the society. The society may have been behaving in one way, which may not necessarily be a good way. A transformational leader comes to such society and changes the culture of that society. That is what transformational leader does. And the fourth area of change in a transformational leader is that a transformational leader develop or mentors other leaders. If you are not developing other leaders, you are not yet a leader. What makes you a leader is that you have been able to develop and mentor others into leadership. And this is done through modeling of leadership to them and leading by example. There is this anonymous quote which says, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. Amen. Now, examples of transformational leaders in history. Now, I think uh, we need to look at some great contemporary example of transformational leaders in history. Eta Ash Amara says, change is inevitable, but transformation is by conscious choice. Now, every one of these leaders that I'm going to mention here, they all made the conscious decision to become a transformational leader. So, if you want to become a transformational leader, you also have to walk in their footsteps by making a conscious decision to become a transformational leader. One example of a transformational leader in history is Mahatma Gandhi. I know we must have heard about Mahatma Gandhi. Uh, that man literally changed the course of India. The story, he literally rewrites the history of India by his action. So he will be the first transformational leader we'll be talking about. And you will also discover that the two other transformational leaders I am going to mention also got their inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi. That is very, very powerful. So you can see how transformational leaders generate or develop other transformational. It may be intentionally or unintentionally. And I believe that these three men that I've mentioned here, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela, I believe apart from Jesus and Paul the Apostles, I believe these great men has influenced more people in our contemporary society more than any other person. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela. So let's look at each of them one after the other. Mahatma Gandhi, inspirer of civil rights movement. Number one, he experienced inward renewal. We are talking about the four changes that must occur in a leader. Now, Mahatma Gandhi experienced inward renewal through his mother, who, who was an extremely pious lady and would not think of taking her meals without her daily prayers. That was where Mahatma Gandhi got his own inspiration. That is where he had his own rebirth from. He got that inspiration from his mother. He had that inward renewal from his mother. And what we are basically talking about transforming your leadership is that change has to begin from within you. The name Mahatma was first applied to him in South Africa in 1914, and it means great soul, venerable, the name that is now commonly used throughout the world. What a coincidence that the name Mahatma was not his original name. It was the name people gave to Mahatma Gandhi because they saw that this man is a changed person, is a different kind of species, is different from every other person. And he got that name far away in South Africa, not even in India, because I believe he spent about 20-something years in South Africa before he went back to India to bring the revolution that they needed in that society. Another thing about Mahatma Gandhi is that he employed non-violent resistance to lead the successful campaign for Indians' independence from British rule. You will also discover that Martin Luther King deployed this strategy. Even Nelson Mandela, to a great extent, deployed this strategy of non-violence resistance to create a change within the society. Another thing about Mahatma Gandhi is that he inspired movements of civil rights and freedom across the world. Another thing you need to know about Mahatma Gandhi is that although Gandhi was very shy, which is okay, we can be shy initially, but then we should outgrow our shyness. He was shy when he was younger, but his only companion were books and school lessons. Can you see why it is good to self-educate ourselves? Just like my friend said in the first session, we have to continue to self-educate ourselves. And that is exactly what Mahatma Gandhi did. He was self-educating himself with books and school lessons. Mahatma Gandhi vowed total abstinence. We are still talking about the inward renewal that he experienced. He vowed total abstinence from meat, from alcohol, and women to his wife and mother when he went to London to study law. That is what we call personal leadership. He knew that he had a responsibility to his wife. So he vowed that he was never going to get an unholy affair with any other woman. That is what we are talking about. That is what personal leadership is all about. And of course, he spent 21 years in South Africa, where he developed his political views, ethics, and politics. So you can see why Nelson Mandela took after him. You can see why Martin Luther King took after him. And Mahatma Gandhi was are credited to saying this, that we should be the change that you want to see in the world. Now let's talk about Martin Luther King Jr. I call him the dreamer because he gave a very powerful speech sometimes ago before he was killed. I have a dream. And I think that was probably the last speech that he gave before he was killed. He was assassinated. Now, Martin Luther King experienced personal inward renewal through the inspiration from Christian beliefs and the non-violent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. Can you see how the lines are being connected? And as a Christian minister, King's main influence was Jesus Christ and the Christian's gospel, which he would quote in his religious meetings and in public discourse. Number 3, Martin Luther King advanced civil rights for people of color in the United States through non-violence and civil disobedience. What is civil disobedience? Civil disobedience is simply going against the law of the land that are contrary to human sensibility. For example, when there is a law in the land that says Christians must not go to church to worship again, of course, we can disobey the law. That is what civil disobedience means. It is going against the law of the land that is not sensible to our human reasoning. And that is what Martin Luther King did. He was the visible spokesman and leader in the civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. King was one of the leaders of the 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered "I Have a Dream" speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. After he gave that speech, he set the whole of United States of America on fire, and people began to hunt for his life after that speech. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was established as a holiday in cities and states throughout the United States beginning in 1971. The holiday was enacted at the federal level by legislation signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1986. And he was credited for saying that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So you can see how transformational leaders are made. They all have inward personal renewal. Then lastly, let's talk about Nelson Mandela as we wrap up. Nelson Mandela, the anti-apartheid activist, he experienced personal inward renewal by being baptized in Methodist Church at the age of 9, attending church every Sunday. Although some biographers stated that he never had a strong religious faith, but for you to know that he had some religious experience is our point of emphasis here. In one way or the other, those experiences must have influenced him to have that conviction of bringing a change to the society. He was the first South African black president elected in a fully representative democratic election. His government was focused on dismantling the legacy of apartheid by fostering racial reconciliation. He was committed to non-violent protest. Can you see? Like Mahatma Gandhi. Mandela served 27 years in prison. He became an elder statesman and focused on combating poverty and HIV/AIDS through charitable Nelson Mandela Foundation. He is held in deep respect with South Africa, within South Africa, where he is often referred to as the father of the nation. He was known for his ability to find common ground with different communities, and he was credited for saying that it is in your hand to make a better world for all who live in it. Conclusion: it takes a changed person to change the world. Do we have any question? If you have any question, you can ask, or if you put it in the chat box, I can go through it. Do we have any question?
Sorry, I wanted to say that was a truly wonderful session. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was just following on, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed it as much as I did. Not only enjoying, I mean, a session should be enjoyable, but also educating, enlightening. So it's all of that and more. So I'll sure look forward to the recording myself. So just want to say thank you to all the participants, and I hope this has been really, really wonderful for you as well.
Thank you. Yeah, does anybody have any comments, observation to make before we wrap up today? Yetunde Oni, are you still there? Ayobayo.
Hello, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, do you have any observation to make or contribution to make?
Everything is still well. At least I'm able to get things right with what you have presented, sir. I want to say thank you for the time, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Yetunde Oni, we just want to hear from you. Yetunde Oni, you are muted. If you are speaking, we can't hear you.
I think our audio is mute. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we have, in order not to continue to keep us till a longer hour, I think we have come to the end of today's session. We've promised us that we will probably spend just 3 hours, and we are already 3 hours up, and we are only able to take 2 courses, which is okay. Hopefully, more people will be able to join us next week by the special grace of God. I just want us to be the carrier of the news, particularly on the WhatsApp group. Be the one to tell them how much you have benefited from this class, so that that can also inspire others to want to join next week. So on that note, we want to draw the curtain on today's session, and hopefully by the grace of God, my friend and I will be here once again next week to take us further on 12 indisputable core values of transformational leader. The mandate to multiply your leadership, a call to transform the neighborhood, and possibly, maybe we might just be able to take understanding the concept of citizenship, but we will see how that goes. But next week, by the grace of God, is going to be another time. Please feel free to send us your observations, your feedbacks, your contributions. They are very, very important to making this school to be better in the future. And I want to say that God bless you. I want to appreciate my very dear friend, Kunle Banwo. Luckily, Kunle Banwo is a pastor, so you can't expect anything less from him. He's a son of a Methodist priest, so you can expect the angle from where he is coming from. So we want to thank you, my very good friend Kunle Banwo, for joining us today. Hope to see you next week. Even though there have not been many people here today, but I can tell you that this session has been amazing, and I believe that it's going to continue to get better, and it can only be better.
Just to kind of put your mind at rest. Yeah. Leadership is not a mass. It's not a crowd business.
Yeah, exactly.
If people to quote that anyway, it's not a crowd business. Yeah. When it comes to leadership, it always is for the few people who are committed to intentional transformation.
Yeah.
So, but all the same, I just want to congratulate Ayobayo and Yetunde for showing yourself and worthy of this and putting value on it. I want to encourage you to carry it on. Yeah. Look at Jesus. He was going to change the world. He picked only 11 people. No, let me put it in a different way. He picked 12 minus 1. He knew that Judas would have no continuing contribution. So that's why I say 12 minus 1. So and this was from someone who wanted to change the whole world. So that's how it works. It's only that small number who are committed to intentional transformation.
So thank you, everyone. We'll see next week.
God bless.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.